Welcome back to Dash for Adventure. We're taking a little adventure to a fort. An old fort. Stick around, this has an interesting history. Welcome to a Fort Loudoun State Historic Area. It was built in 1756 by the British. It's always interesting coming to places like this because you learn so much, like the Unicoi Turnpike Trail. It's a trail that was well over 1,000 years old, and it existed prior to the European settlers. It was a Cherokee trail that led them to areas up and down the coast. One of the few places on American soil that you'll see the Union Jack British flag in honor of this originally being a British fort. Let's go check it out. Wow. Could you imagine wearing that outfit?
That'd be hot.
Wow. And there it is from an aerial view. Look, Lincoln logs. I always look for signs to see if I'm in the right place, and it looks like this is the place to be.
Definitely the place to be.
Wow, look at that map. Could you imagine being a blacksmith back then? Many of these artifacts, actually all of these artifacts, come from this location. Archaeologists have uncovered all of this. And much of it dates back to before the British colonies. So, early Cherokee Indians and their activities here on this peninsula. Look, water. Welcome to Fort Loudoun, constructed by the English in 1756 to help win the valley of the Mississippi captured by the Indians under French influence in 1760. This was before the United States, before the Declaration of Independence. This was when we were still just a British colony. We hadn't even separated into states yet. Look at the construction. Logs shaved off into points and angled out of the ground to reduce the chance of invasion or attack. And see the cannon holes? Wow. This is actually the third version of this exact same fort. The fort, built in 1756, was burned down by the Cherokee, the very Indians that it was built to protect. Because, of course, we broke the treaties with the Cherokee, and the Cherokee cut off supplies to the fort and burned it down. There's the Sally Port. Wonder why it's called Sally Port. Paula was asking, and I don't know. My guess is, though, they didn't have asphalt or concrete back in the day, obviously. But look at the way this was constructed. So archaeologists had discovered this place in the early 1900s, and they rebuilt this fort in the 1930s. Look at these cannon ports. And after the first reconstruction in the 1930s, it became a National Historic Park in 1965. Look at that view. Check this out. Okay. This looks like a munitions cabin. Look at these musket rifles. Grape shot, cornhole shells, hand-grained shells, swan shot, cannon cartridges. Yeah, this is an interesting cabin. Musket cartridges, musket flints, and I am sure that's supposed to be black powder. Musket cartridges. So they would pre-load those cartridges with black powder and the musket balls. Or so these actually had the pre-measured amounts of gunpowder. So they would load the musket ball, put the gunpowder shots in, and they would pack it down and be ready for a shot. Boy, we've come a long ways. So the third version of this fort was built when they raised this entire peninsula 18 feet. So they brought in dirt, raised the dirt up, and then rebuilt all of this in the early 1940s because they flooded this region for hydroelectric purposes in 1943. The side door was closed. That one's locked. Oh, we can go in this one. So this fort was built to protect the Cherokee women and children when the Indians went off to war with the British in the French and Indian War. Imagine sleeping on a bed of straw. I guess it was more comfortable than sleeping on the ground. No insulation, cracks in the walls, but still, this was high-class living in the 1800s. So merchants and a blacksmith and others showed up here from South Carolina to start trading with the Indians and set up a society and help protect those Cherokee women and children. And this is where they live. There has to be some form of area above this in the attic. I wonder how they accessed the attic and what they used it for. So while the men were off fighting in the French and Indian War, they were winning their battles. And then on their return, they were coming back from Middle America, which would have been just west of where Tennessee is now, And on the way back, European settlers noticed some of these Indians traveling through the woods and on the trails back home, and they shot and killed them. And in fact, almost 36 Indians were killed after they'd been fighting alongside the British. And in Cherokee Nation, they always lived an eye for an eye and blood for blood. So the Cherokee went after those families that killed the almost 36 Indians that had been fighting alongside the British. And of course, the British looks at that as barbaric acts. So the British came down and wanted to hold the Indians responsible for the deaths of those European settlers. And that's when the treaties broke down. The Cherokee laid siege to this fort. And by 1860, the British soldiers were starving and the fort was about gone. So the Cherokee ended up burning it out. Imagine trying to defend the fort and your life with a cannon shooting at that portal with these logs as your defense. He's going fishing. Check out this blacksmith shop. Imagine them stoking the fire there and forging the metal to their will to make the devices they needed of the day. Horseshoes, clasps, clamps. Over here's where Tom Bodett lived. But back then, he couldn't leave the light on for you.
I don't know. You'd be surprised.
He would leave a lantern on for you. These beds are made with rope and then straw-filled mattresses, where most of the beds are wood-based with straw-filled mattresses.
And then you have one in the ceiling.
Ooh,
Couple.
I wonder if that was for storage or for someone to sleep. And then there's actually beds up there in the attic, in this one. Wow. They have bookshelves over here in this one. And over there and above the mantle. I wonder if they did call it a mantle back then.
Or bookshelves.
Or a bookshelf.
I have so many questions.
Tell us your questions. If you were to visit here, what would you want to know? Like, is there a little girl in a white dress with long, black, greasy hair going to climb out of this well? Ooh, no, that's why it's locked.
Not today.
So that the little girl in the well house can't come out. Ooh, scary. Little known secret. Paula had a well in her bedroom when she was growing up, and it scared her.
It was covered by car hood.
Ooh.
And my bed was right over it.
Yep, just cart me off now. Don't think I could have done that. And I don't know if this is a pizza oven.
Woohoo!
I highly doubt that it's a pizza oven. But
I hope it is.
do you think they had pizza ovens in 1756?
Maybe.
I mean, it looks like one, but it was probably just an oven. And later on, we decided to start cooking pizzas with them.
Probably. Look at it's constructed that way.
That's right. So that wood is there on purpose probably to hang meat that's going to be cooked. Here's another sally port. Let's see what this building is.
Barracks.
More barracks. Ooh, look at this. I bet they have reenactments here.
They do. They had one last year.
They did have a reenactment last year.
Yeah, I'm not sure they will this year because the park's undergoing construction.
Look how strange that is, to see a British flag flying high on American soil. This fort being the only fort that the British built west of the Appalachian mountain range was built at the confluence of the Little Tennessee River and the Tellico River. The area was, of course, flooded by TVA in 1943. Everything about this fort's construction is authentic. Even the spikes they used, the nails. Of course, they have master locks and things like that in places, but all the metal looks like it was forged. They've got updated bolts and nuts here, but a lot of it was built the same way it was originally built. The garrison, soldiers, and merchants would have done business inside the fort, but the Indians and others would have gathered outside of the fort. Well, let's go out this sally port and see what's out here. So from this gate to Charlestown, it was 450 miles of rugged trails. So from Fort Loudoun down to Charlestown, which we know as Charleston now, it was 450 miles. 30 days. 30 days. It took 30 days to go to Charleston from here because there were no trails, only footpaths. No roads, and it was over mountains and through Appalachia. So the British had to travel all across that rough terrain for 30 days, bringing iron ingots, food, supplies, trading materials, and tools to build the fort with. Weapons, black powder, all as gifts to the Cherokee to create a peace treaty with them, and a treaty that they would go and fight in the war. Because the Indians knew the land much better than the British, and the British knew they wanted that advantage. As is still normal today in British culture, there's a guardhouse where one soldier would stand guard at the sally port, right here. Originally, the entire fort was surrounded by these locust trees, these locust bushes, as a protective fortification because they have 4-inch thorns. Look at that. Imagine trying to run up to a fort and being hit with all these thorns. It'd be a sticky situation, wouldn't it? So in 1943, when they flooded the river to create this lake, they flooded a town called Tuskegee. It was an old Indian town. And that Indian town was the birthplace of Sequoyah. We'll visit his museum another day. However, these are replicas of what the town of Tuskegee looked like. This would have been a mud hut that they would have used during the winter for protection from the elements. And this is right at height So you have to duck down to get in here. And I'm sure that was by design, to keep the heat in. And there's a fireplace and a mud floor. And check it out. That would have been where they would have sat or slept. They would have built one of these as well as the mud hut. And this would have been where they would have slept or taken care of business in the summertime. To keep the cool breeze of the confluence of these rivers flowing. Originally from the town of Tuskegee. Replicas of their summer and winter house. And there's a tired woman. Okay, that was tiring. But nothing like a YouTube channel to get you to get outside and exercise. Look at that poor tree.
There's our next destination.
Oh yeah. I think we're gonna go over there another day. That's the Tellico Blockhouse. That is an American fort from a later generation. We'll visit there another day. Whew, that was tiring.
Yeah, it was.
Thank you guys so much for joining us on this adventure today to Fort Loudoun. We appreciate every one of you guys for watching, and we hope to see you in the comments.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Have a good day. Bye.